everybody. Uh, it's a pleasure and a privilege to be amongst all of you today. I hope I'm audible. Yeah. Let me just make a very quick introduction. So I'm Monika, as Vineet said, co-founder at Presto. Presto is one of its kind digital platform company providing technology for commerce companies or for commerce in general, as well as marketplaces. And we have been one of the few companies who've been working for the past 10 years to help democratize the technology that powers commerce as well as marketplaces. And when we talk about marketplaces, we're talking about both B2B and B2C marketplaces in particular. Without much ado, let's get started with the presentation. I think today I would largely like to cover two essential topics. What is it that artificial intelligence can do for me, and what are the possibilities, what are the use cases that I as an organization can use the AI for, and the second is what can I as a business owner, as a business, what is it that I can do about the AI? How can I adopt AI into my processes? And here the focus is not just e-commerce, it's about commerce in general. So that's the part that I wanted to bring to the table. We usually look at AI from a very digital realm in a lot of cases, whether it's from data collection perspective or usage perspective. But what I would like to kind of also talk about is the brick and mortar, how businesses in general are able to harness the data from a B2B space perspective. So let's look at some of those. Here are some of the things just to set context what we would be covering. So we will be talking about, Raghu spoke at length about how in the B2C space they're able to leverage artificial intelligence in a lot of spaces, whether it's customer experience and a lot of those other recommendations, pricing, and so on and so forth. B2B businesses, as one of the gentlemen also asked, presents a very different set of challenges or kind of limitations, so to say. However, it's still quite a bit relevant. We'll look at some specific use cases, not just supply chain management, but how you can do demand forecasting and product recommendations even in the B2B space. You can predict your customer churn and, of course, your communications management. And hopefully, we'll be able to wrap it up with certain implementation, paths for us as businesses to take forward. And we can probably close with that. I let this slide sink in a little bit. We are all, I am guessing, tech enthusiasts here, so this will probably not come as a surprise to you. But think about this. I think it's quite a powerful way if you can analyze your Spotify data and then predict what kind of jeans is the user likely to purchase. So totally two unrelated industries. We're talking about music industry and then apparel industry. And we can, of course, based on your playlists, define the music patterns and what the user is likely to listen, but then to extrapolate and mine that data and make patterns out of it to be able to predict, what kind of apparel preferences a user is likely to have. I think that is where the power of AI kind of really comes in. It's all about harnessing large amounts of data and then making sense out of it, which as a human being probably is not probably doable to the same extent. So I think AI definitely has, I think this is probably a good context to start with. There are various reports that talk about, that B2B industry is bigger than B2C. and it is. You can talk about it's 2 times, 5 times, 8 times that of B2C commerce. And yet, AI adoption in the B2B businesses have been largely not that high. Just to put a little more context here. So I think we've all been, from a B2C perspective, we've all booked tickets, right, on Make My Trip. And I don't know about you guys, but every time I go and research a particular sector or a particular ticket, I search it once, it shows me a certain price. I search it the second time, it shows me a higher price. Third time, it just keeps going. And what we've also noticed is if you're searching from a MacBook, or you're searching from an Android device, or you're searching from a Windows laptop, even those differences are there. And then, of course, if you talk about Ola or Uber booking, right? Again, the search pricing that we talk about, it factors into, if it started raining in Bangalore, the prices shoot up. If there is an event in that area, if there is a music concert in the area, the prices shoot up. So the whole AI thing, it's not just about the demand surges. It's not just about the supply, deficiencies. It's also about a lot of external factors that are being factored in. What are the weather patterns? What are the external factors, forecasts in the area? The beauty about the B2C is it generates a lot of data because, of course, as consumer data gets generated. But it's also about, it also poses a challenge that you have to give real-time recommendations, right? So speed is very important when we talk about B2C AI adoption and use cases. It is a real-time recommendation. The customer is there and you're throwing up a price right away. When we talk about B2B commerce, there are certain challenges associated with it. Now we are talking about 400 million, 4 million users in millions in the B2C case. In the B2B side, we are talking about, you will have 100,000, 2,000 customers, retailers that are probably linked to you. And that is inherently a challenge when it comes to AI adoption. The data points are not that humongous for us to be able to create trends, to decipher patterns from the data that we are gathering. And I think that is one thing that one needs to keep in mind. However, the requirement for a real-time speed recommendation is also not that great in the B2B side. So we have time on our side. We don't have to, typically business-to-business play requires requests for quotes, so RFQ-based requirements. We have time to set a quotation to the customer. We have time to set what is the kind of price that we want to send to a particular customer. And that gives us time to process the data more meaningfully and to be able to make decisions based on that. Therefore, for a B2B business, it's not so much about speed, it's more about precision. That what is the data, what is the kind of data that we are gathering, and what are we able to do about it? Is that data actually making sense? There are certain other challenges that B2B businesses also inherently carry. So B2B businesses are largely concerned about, what is my working capital? How can I optimize my working capital? I don't want to lose out on the revenue, so I want to stock adequate inventory. The dynamic pricing, right? So B2B businesses typically, unlike you go on a Myntra website and you see the prices right there for the competing products as such, a B2B business never really wants to publish its price list because they want to negotiate the pricing basis your volumes, your frequency, your product mix, what is your credit history, what are your payment terms, and so on and so forth. So that is why B2B is a slightly different ball game as compared to B2C. For B2B also, large amount of inputs also come from consumer preferences and what ultimately the consumer is willing to buy. But how that translates to a business requirements is what makes it slightly different. So what can AI help us in the B2B use cases? And all of these points listed here, AI has a role to play. So whether we talk about demand forecasting, whether we talk about procurement, product recommendations, risk assessment, credit mapping, customer support, dynamic pricing, your pricing strategies, even predictive maintenance, all of those will probably, so a lot of time brands, manufacturers, they do analyze this data and give it out. For example, how Raghu was mentioning that they would want to provide more and more insights to their suppliers. And as brand owners, they need to analyze the consumer preferences and translate it back, for product recommendations, what kind of products should the stylist produce, and so on and so forth. So even for example, things like product placements. We have, you go to a bookstore, some of the books are placed in the center. And a lot of consumer preferences are analyzed to be able to do those recommendations. So brands, manufacturers, they do provide these kind of insights to their B2B customers, to their retailers, to their distributors, and to the stores that they have. Now this is the first use case that I want to kind of take a slightly deep dive into. On the left-hand side, what you're looking at is a very generic screen, which think about a business having 2,000 retailers as their customers. And at best, in a generic world, we'll be able to probably provide one section where you're able to display a banner ad based on the location. So if it's a retailer in Shimoga vis-a-vis a retailer in Bangalore, you will probably be able to provide those recommendations there. What happens with AI is that you're able to process large amount of data and personalize for each of those 2,000 retailers. And when I say personalized, it means every retailer, and it's the same kind of personalization in the B2C space, just that in the B2B space, adoption has been somewhat slower. What we are able to give to each of these retailers is a very personalized screen for what they have been buying. So look at a lot of macro factors that will go into it. What were the prices last year? What has the monsoons been like? What is the GDP growth? What are the local consumer preferences and the taste graphs, right? So those will be there. Then look at the seasonal variations. Diwali came middle of November and not beginning of October. Does it create shifts in the pattern? I'm a pharmacy, right? And this is post-monsoon dengue season in Bangalore and a lot of other places. And as a pharmacy, if I'm not stocking the required medications, I'm losing out on revenues, right? So those are a lot of macro data that kind of are processed in the background. And then, of course, the micro data. So vis-a-vis that particular retailer or that business customer, what has been the volumes of purchase? What has been the frequency of purchase? How has their credit been? What are their payment terms like? Have we been able to fulfill all their requirements in the past? What is the product mix? What is their percentage spent vis-a-vis their revenues? So a lot of these factors are analyzed, and then we are able to provide a very personalized screen to each of these retailers. And it is not, it becomes a push versus pull. So in the first case, we're just pushing the categories that we as a business wants to push to our business customers. without any idea what is it that the other side wants to actually buy. In the second case, with the help of AI, we are able to actually give them the category recommendations that they are most likely to buy. It doesn't matter what is it that we want to push. And that is a very fine balance. Also, I think it is very important for these retailers, and why this becomes a very important tool for business B2B play, is because these retailers are constantly looking at ways to optimize their inventory, the products that they want to carry, and then their working capital requirements. So it's a very fine balance between how much stock you carry, because the more it lies in the warehouse, the more working capital gets tied up, and that's kind of the play that they want to continuously fine-tune and optimize. So the impact is very real. One of the examples, of course, is Tradera, which managed to increase their revenues by 125% based on predictive recommendations. The second use case, I think we will probably all agree, keeping a customer is easier and better than finding a new one. So this information, the data that we are gathering, becomes very important for us to be able to predict a possible customer churn at a point where we can actually do something about it. So this is as real as it gets. If you have no idea, so I think one of our conversations we were having, and this is a mobile phone distribution company having further 2,000 retailers. And while we were having a discussion, he said, I'm here to do a collection, right? And some 16 lakhs odd worth of money is stuck. And they have been pushing the products to the channel or to the retailer without having any idea what is the stock that is still lying with them, what is the receivables from them. And they have, because as you know, very traditional businesses, they don't have the tools in place to be able to have this information on fingertips. Most of the business happens on the phone. You know, send me X amount of goods and so much goods, and the business happens, and then we look at the recovery later on and so forth. However, if at the point that this distributor wanted to send the goods out to the retailer, if he had a consolidated information about these parameters, even the micro parameters, forget about the macro parameters that he will probably analyze at some point of time. Even those parameters, if he had, then it makes a very different story. He would know that there are already 16 lakh of credit that is lying with the retailer, and that he should recover that before we sends out the more. So I think capturing that data and figuring out, you know, when is the trend changing, when has the product mix changed, when the retailer or the business customer has started buying less than what it used to, the product mix has changed. Those become very important triggers for us as a business to adapt and take action on. And I think that is, that could make or break, you know, whether we are able to retain the customer or not before it's too late. This is, I think, much familiar terrain with most of us, because we've been using the chatbots in the B2C space. We've been on the other side as well. From the B2B perspective also, this remains a very important tool. Again, Raghu also mentioned, so I'm glad it acts as a validation here as well. From services perspective, from support perspective, of course, we don't want to replace account managers, and I hope the day never comes that we have to actually replace account managers. But I think the human intuition, the relationship, of course, that cannot be undermined. However, some of the more mundane tasks, you know, where is my order tracking, helping them place orders. In the B2B, it becomes slightly easier because you don't have such huge catalogs in most cases, or very, you know, similar, homogeneous kind of catalogs. So those, and troubleshooting, you can offer 24/7 support, you can augment your non-working hours with those kind of conversational AI platforms. And then, of course, combined with other technologies, augmented reality and a lot of sensor data and other things, smartphones. There is the recommendations can also be around what is the optimal channel to reach a particular customer. See, customers in the B2B space also requires the B2C convenience. And I think this is a very fundamental shift that is happening. I, as a consumer, can go anywhere without calling anybody. I can do the transaction. But as a B2B user, I have to send 10 emails, make 10 phone calls, and figure out the same stuff. Why? And I think that is the part that is fundamentally driving the adoption in the B2B space, which is that I want the same B2C convenience as a B2B buyer. Why should I be denied that privilege, right? So, and as a customer, you cannot dictate that you can do business with us only on phone, you can do business with us only on WhatsApp or emails and so on. It has to be an omni-channel strategy. So once, as a customer, I am logging in, I should be able to see my past orders, my payment history, my favorite lists, and so on and so forth. So I think B2B customers are asking for the similar privileges. A little bit about how various industries have adopted AI. And AI adoption has largely been driven by the use cases for particular industries. So one example in agriculture space is, I think, Pepsi and a company called Cropin. They recently partnered to do recommendations and predictive forecasting for farmers for the potato crops, right? So they use sensor data from the soil, they use the drone data from the weather and the crops to be able to give recommendations and advance warnings to the farmers for any pest or disease infestations that might happen, or what is the yield likely to look from a particular crop. We talk about retail. Amazon, I think, patented this technology probably back in 2014, where they look at the kind of demand that is likely to come and stock their warehouses so they're able to ship the product within hours of the purchase, right? Now, I mean, AI, bigger companies have been using for a long time, but I think the hype has been much more because the time, for example, let's say Twitter got to 100 million users in about 60 months. WhatsApp took about 42 months, and then TikTok took about 9 months, and then, of course, ChatGPT took about 40 days to reach 200 million user base. So the hype is more, but I think businesses in the past have been using AI for sure. And let's look at the energy sector, for example. So with the power, the wind energy, solar energy, water, hydro energy, because of the weather variations, there are surges in supply side, and then of course there are surges on demand side. How can AI help sort out those things better? So manage the surges in demand and supply better, to the extent that you can program the washing machines to run at times when the tariffs are the lowest in the day. So there are a lot of use cases that are already being used, and I think will further get adopted as the technology gets more mature, as the businesses starts to look at how they can adopt. What can we as business owners do about it? Most B2B businesses have been very traditional in nature, and we are facing this day in, day out. From paper processing of RFQs, POs, and so on and so forth. The problem, again, starts with the data, right? There is a lot of data, but it's not in one place. There are a lot of customer touch points, but it all lies in the minds of people. So as a business, I think the first thing that one has to look at from a B2B perspective is start gathering more and more data, in a shape and format that can be used as some, the speakers before me were also saying, I mean, garbage in, garbage out, right? So AI is not some magic genie that will start working. AI is all about finding patterns from huge amounts of data. And that of course is one starting point. And the second, of course, is look at what are the areas that you want to improve upon in your company. If churn is something that you want to improve upon, then that's a use case that one has to focus on and look at what are the things that you want to analyze and collect the data around and see what are the patterns that emerge out of it. Surprises happen, right? So because once we start looking at the data in the shape and format that today's technologies allow us, we don't know what kind of surprises come up. And those are not always intentional. So of course, it's important to start from what is it that within your company, whether in the digital or a more traditional brick and mortar space, what is it that you would want to do? And then, of course, start organizing the data. And then look at what are the models that probably work best. So this is a rinse and repeat kind of a cycle. One has to kind of continuously learn, continuously experiment, and see what is it that largely works for us. Risks, sorry, there was a little mess up on the slide. Risks, of course, are there. There are errors, and I think even on ChatGPT, if you ask some of the questions, it's not necessarily that you get the most intelligent answer. The algorithms are still learning. They're not as perfect as one hope they would be. There are biases that happen, and then of course they become intelligent time, but it is important to sanitize. It is important to do a sanity check by human beings that whatever is being thrown out, does it really make sense? I think that is one thing that we just cannot blindly follow the recommendations that come out of the AI algorithms. And the other thing, of course, is that, it just like humans with training, it does get better. So you just have to kind of continuously experiment and avoid those risks. So in all, I would say, even in B2B space, just not the bigger enterprises, but even the regular B2B companies are poised to benefit from the AI, from a lot of use cases that are possible. We do need large data sets, or in fact, we do need data sets to begin with to make some sense out of it, and a lot of processes and touch points. We need to collect the data. And despite the risks, I think the rewards are worth it. So absolutely. Happy to take questions. I think we have 2-3 minutes still left.
Yeah, we have time for 2 questions. We'll do the gentleman at the back and the gentleman in the front.
I'm Santosh from Dell Technologies. So I had a question with regards to customer touch points, right? So B2B online, like if we see that there needs to be a lot of touch points from the business side, because customer will have a lot of questions. And
absolutely.
So is it even possible for us to move completely online?
I think, automation and technology, when we say, you become completely online. So this is not, I think, in my opinion, a 0 to 1 play, 0 or 1 play. I think a lot of, I'll just give you some examples, right? So some of our customers have, let's say, 1,200 business customers, right? So we have business customer, and then they have business customers. And it is humanly impossible to have a specific catalog with a specific pricing for each of those customers. What technology or what AI is able to do is look at a lot of parameters, the micro parameters to begin with, to be able to say that here here is the pricing that I'm willing to offer to you, right? And those, in some of the cases, these are commodities, and those prices might change 3 times a day. What technology is able to do is, without the need to do, you cannot print, you cannot possibly print 3 times a day and then send it to each of your customer. And you cannot possibly do it over WhatsApp. So you do require centralized systems to be able to do that. We can do that, right? So technology makes it possible. Over time, am I able to, let's say, optimize or streamline the feedback from the customer, right? And how intelligently am I able to put it or feed it back in the system? I think that typically takes time, to your point, that not everything will get automated in the first go. So one has to also, as a business, kind of continuously calibrate automation, technology. It comes at a cost. If you are able to do that same exercise with the customer by putting, one person there, you have to, of course, weigh the cost of that one person and the cost of the technology to see if it makes sense. So I think the answer to your question is yes. I mean, it's not a digital. You cannot automate everything, especially on day one, but you have to begin somewhere. Because if you don't begin that journey, you will continuously be in that evaluation mode and never make progress. I hope I answered that.
Hi, this
Hi.
is Sachin Jain. Great session, by the way.
Thank you.
So 2 questions from my side. One, you mentioned a very specific point about the data sets.
Can you be a little louder? No?
Okay, is it better now?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you mentioned a very specific point about the data sets being limited in the B2B space. It's a very genuine point. So how do you really tackle that? Do you augment the data? Which techniques have you really followed to have enough data sets for the model training in the B2B space specifically?
Yeah. So I'll just give an example. So a startup that is just launching their B2B operations, right? A startup that is just launching their B2B operations. When they start talking about recommendations, it becomes a moot point. You need to have 6 months, 12 months purchase history to be able to start recommending. I'm not even talking about AI. It's just a simple recommendation engine. The data sets do exist. It's not that they don't. These companies, and not this example, but most of the traditional B2B companies have been in existence for years. They've built the businesses. B2B businesses are even harder to build, right? So they have been there for years. The data sets do exist, but they're very fragmented. So when we talk about AI adoption, I think depends on where the business is in its journey. How far have they been able to optimize, digitize, and collect those data points. So the answer is very subjective. It depends from company to company and how far have they been in their digital journey. But yes, that is required. But the intelligence do exist. Even if you talk to a very brick and mortar kind of a business, they know the things on their fingertips. They know what it is like. And once you start harnessing, that's kind of a good starting point to start collecting the data.
Got it. Yep. So another point was you mentioned, so you showed one graph about the gap in the estimated, regarding the customer churn when you were evaluating that, what will be the estimated value of purchases in the future versus if there is a dip in the current purchases, then, what is the gap analysis basically? My question here is, this can be extrapolated even right now without AI. So this can be extrapolated even without AI right now.
Absolutely.
Right? So in terms of ROI, why should a company invest, for this gap analysis, which can actually be extrapolated normally? Because, see, AI is a huge investment in any case. So what are your thoughts
if you don't
on
mind,
the ROI?
can you keep your question very quick because we don't have time?
Yes,
Yeah.
sure.
It was one question technically, but you're asking a second, so if you don't mind.
Thank you so much. This was my question.
No, absolutely. I think you're spot on. You don't require AI if you're looking at just one customer data points and kind of making a decision whether this customer is dipping or not. But when you start looking at 2,000, 5,000 kind of business customers and want to have that information, you cannot be analyzing each customer on a daily basis. I think that's where it's about gathering the data. So it might not be as huge a data as in the consumer space, but still that intelligence needs to come back to the system. I think that is what is more important and can probably help. Yeah. Thank you so
very
much. It's been a pleasure.